Well, good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful day in most places of the world, other than the southern parts of the United States, where they're getting, in American terms, around 25 inches of rain from Mistress Sally on a daily basis. And I don't know if you've seen the devastation. It's quite spectacular in terms of what that amount of water can do when it's coughed out and vomited out onto you at that level and at that pace. We have guests from Singapore, one from Dubai, loads from the United Kingdom, a couple from South Africa. So thank you all for making time, for making yourself present. I'm going to hopefully make really good use of your time and give you a fantastic return. One thing that I would really appreciate is if we can keep our cameras on. It makes it more personable, it makes it warmer, it makes it feel like we are human again. And we've done a number of webinars, and it's honestly dreadful. It's horrible. You speak into this screen or you speak into a presentation, and you have no sense of the souls on the other side. The way that we've classically always worked from an Aurik point of view is really against our values. People, ideas, and action. And the people part is all about empathy. It's nice to feel connected. And I think it really, really makes a difference. So with that, I'm going to start just with a very, very quick introduction. And the introduction is, I suppose, starting with me. My name is Pavlo Phitidis. I'm one of the founders of Aurik. I'm an investor. I've written a book or two. I speak a bit of nonsense from time to time across different stages of the world, all to do exclusively, only obsessively with business growth and innovation. It's my first love. It's my only passion. That and bees and martial arts and riding and people. But business growth especially, because it is so profoundly complicated and yet so profoundly simple once you've understood it. I started off by discovering in the United States, after having lived there for a year and a half, that 94.6% of established businesses fail to sell. They're largely closed down. And these stats emerged through a cross-section of data from the IRS and a number of other trade institutions within the United States. And what stunned me about that is the people I had worked with in the US were smart, they were hardworking, they were educated in their fields, either technically or academically. They were committed, they were passionate, and they had made good money. But when it came down to the final hour, the final destination, they had to close their businesses for the reasons that I'm going to be sharing with you today. It was something that really perturbed me and upset me. And I decided that that was a problem worthwhile solving. So the way that we did it as Aurik is we started, built, and sold 12 businesses over a 9-year period. We had 2 fantastic failures. We had 2 incredible IPOs. We had 3 management buyouts, and we had 5 sales to corporate entities who were looking to acquire revenue growth and innovation. And what was most interesting is that the last handful of businesses took half the time and about a third of the investment to build to the same value as the first handful. And coming from an engineering and finance background, along with my co-founder who comes from a legal and finance background, we started to map out the activities we had performed to understand how to get this right consistently, reliably, so we could offer it to the people we care most about, which are the business owners building, running, and growing SMEs. We managed to do that, and we've done it now over the last 6 years to over 2,700 SMEs across 3 continents. And the most fantastic thing that I can show and demonstrate and report is that our clients over a 2-year period with us have enjoyed a compound annual revenue growth rate of 29.8% on an annual basis. In effect, the size of the business doubles its revenues more or less over 2.5 years of operation with us. The agenda today, so I can deliver good value for money and make good use of your time. I want to share an analogy for tough times, because we all have tough times. And the thing is that when you're building a business in tough times and you're feeling constantly under assault, an analogy gives you a bit of perspective, a bit of distance, a bit of separation from the actual challenges that you might be facing on a daily basis. I want to talk about the 5 growth impediments that we've seen, we've understood, we've discovered that when you remove them will lead to and will generate the growth. I'm going to share one slide with you working with Aurik. It should take me about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. It's very simple. And I would love to engage in some Q&A. To get the Q&A going, I would like to start with 5 questions. 7 questions, in fact. I call them the 7 acts of building a business. And my first question to you all, and please share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your perspectives on the chat. All questions on the chat will be addressed, I can promise you. And if I do miss you because of time pressures, I will get back to you and answer the questions you specifically asked. But what is your current attitude to business growth? What's in your head around it? You know, in the midst of wherever you look, in the midst of COVID, what we're all going through, what we're currently going through, what we are emerging out of in some cases and seemingly re-entering in other cases, where is your headspace? How are you thinking about your business? What is the dominant attitude that occupies your mind day in and day out? The next thing is, what makes your business special? There are a lot of very talented people on the screen. I've looked at all your profiles. I've looked at the businesses you're in. I've looked at skill sets that you have, contain, own. What makes your business special? Is it your product? Is it your service? Is it your passion? What sets you apart? The world of SME, which we all live in, is extremely competitive. What distinguishes you from your competitors? Next, how do you consistently tell the world about what makes you special and then fulfill your promises? And the key word over here is consistency. What are the mechanisms in your business that deliver a consistent, reliable, persistent, ongoing delivery of promises? And what is the root cause behind what delivers that in your business? How do you make it all happen? How do you make it all happen? And here's the toughest question of all. If you don't make it happen, who is making it happen? Number 5, how do you spend your time? The most precious commodity in the world, the thing that we can never, ever get back. Once it's spent, it's spent. And how are you spending that time? What does your Monday look like from when you get going to the end of the day? And how is Monday different to a Friday? What does January look like? And now in September, how does that look? And last year to this year, how do you spend your time? Why are you doing what you're doing? What is your final destination in your business? There's some very, very lofty goals that I've seen expressed in websites of many of the folks on the screen. But what is your final destination? And you know, when we're building and we're in the thick of it, seldom do we think what we're building towards. And then my final question to you, how long have you been at it for? So do this for me, please. How many hours do you work in a day? An average day. Take that and calculate it by the number of days you work in a week, an average week. Now take that and calculate it by 50 weeks. There are 52 weeks in the year. But I'm guessing as business owners, we mostly are working because we're building our passions, we're building our dreams, we're building our income, we're building a space and a place that really matters to us. And how many hours does that come to in a year? Now multiply it by the number of years. And I'll give you a sense. Someone who's been at it for 20 years has worked around 50,000 hours. Around 50,000 hours. And what is that work being generated towards? What's it orientated towards? Because where is the wealth maths in your business? Certainly from what we've seen, most business owners we work with, and most business owners I've engaged with, believe that their wealth will be created from the final moment in their business, which is mostly a clean, good, solid exit. So keep those questions in the back of your mind, because what I'm going to do now is start with an analogy. One of my favorite people who inspired me as a youngster around ships and diving and all things water, I was convinced I was going to be a marine biologist. From the age of 5 or 6, I was already saying, I want to live by the sea, I want to live in the sea, and I had fantasies of being Jacques Cousteau #2. It just looked like such a cool idea and such an incredible thing to do. He had a ship called the Calypso. And what I'd like to talk about is the journey of building a business being akin to Jacques Cousteau, or actually the journey of sailing a ship. If you look at it, all ships sail in the open ocean. And that means we're all operating in a similar space and place. So despite COVID, despite Brexit, despite climate change, and the trauma that will wring upon us all, we're all sailing in an equally choppy, difficult, awkward sea. When you sail a ship, you need to depart with purpose. And the purpose is, why am I doing this? And what is the design of the ship in order to help me achieve my purpose? So this is a research vessel, and it's designed in a very particular way. When I look at the ship itself, in terms of its design, it has an engine room, which is below decks, that drives the propeller. And it has a bridge, which is above decks, that leads the direction of the ship. A ship has a crew, much like a business has a team. And that crew understands exactly what they need to do, where they need to do it, and how they need to do it. A ship has a navigation room, and navigational equipment. Much like a business, our numbers navigate our business. It lets us know if we're in the money or out the money. It helps us understand whether crises are emerging or not. But most importantly, when you set sail from your destination, from your point of departure, you need to know your destination. If it's a 12-day journey out at sea, you resource your vessel to carry 14 to 16 days of food, fuel, and water. Because if you're not clear why you're doing what you're doing and what the final destination is in your business, you could well find yourself, as I have witnessed and seen, and myself experienced, at the end of the journey, out at sea. And that's what leads to the 94.6% businesses started, successfully built, that made money, but happened never to ever sell. So I'm going to play with the analogy as we move through the course of this morning. What is your destination? What is your destination? Guy, why are you doing what you're doing? And Douglas, what is the final destination? I love that. Sometimes I feel that, not any longer. I certainly used to though. What is your final destination? The view that we certainly hold is that the only destination for every business is that we as the business owners should be building it into an asset. And an asset has 3 features to it. The first is it grows its capital value. You buy a share for $100 on the stock exchange. You sell it 3 to 5 years later, hopefully for $200. The $100 capital gain gives it in a third asset status. The second thing we hope for, we buy the share for $100, and we hope over the 3-year period that we hold it, it's going to give us $10, $15, $20 of dividends. We are looking for income growth along with capital growth. And now here's the nub of the situation. When we choose to sell that share, the share needs to be tradable. When Douglas says, I'm selling my share, Bevan needs to be a buyer, or Mark needs to be a buyer. If you can't trade it, you can't sell it. If you can't sell it, you cannot ever realize the capital value of it. From an Aurik point of view, we fundamentally believe that in sailing your ship, there's only one destination, and we call it an asset of value. It has 5 features. The first is it has a brand that is well positioned. And I'll talk through each of these in the next 5 slides. It is driven and built and supported by a system of delivery. It has a purposeful team. Your job as the captain of your ship is fundamentally and profoundly orientated around growth. And ultimately, it's a business that meets the 3 requirements of an asset, making it a sellable entity. So let's start from there. Well, let's go one step back. Let's go back to mindset. There's only one mindset that any business owner can afford to have, and it is a growth-orientated mindset. And during the COVID period, it's been interesting because a lot of the conversations we've had have been around people saying, yeah, you know what, we've decided we're going to keep our ship in a safe port. It's too choppy out there. It's wild as hell out there. We're going to batten down the hatches and we're going to wait for the storm to pass. That was one mindset. It was a resigning mindset. The other mindset was one that says, the storm is here. The storm is unpredictable. The storm is rough. But we're going to sail our ships into the storm. We're going to test the hull and see what we need to do to improve it. We are going to test our crew and see what we need to do to increase capacity. Because when the storm passes, we'll be in the front of the queue around a changed marketplace, operating in an environment with fewer competitors, knowing full well that we are more relevant than ever before to the needs of customers and clients. The only thing all of us have 100% control over is our attitudes. And our attitudes lead to our actions. If that attitude is not growth-orientated, in the midst of difficult times, in the midst of challenges, that attitude won't allow you to see the opportunities that you can grasp and redefine your business to make it relevant for the future. That growth mindset doesn't mean you throw money at a problem. The growth mindset constantly asks, where is the opportunity given the open ocean that we are sailing in? Brand positioning, the first layer, the first slice, the base of an asset of value. How do you respond to a competitive, noisy business environment? In the UK alone, there are 12.1 million co.uk websites, and that ignores all the .io websites. It ignores the .com websites. It is a crowded space in the world of SME. Getting your brand positioning right means you have to embrace the concept of brand. And what does it mean? In our worldview, we see a brand as only possible if you have a clear sense of who you serve, what problem you solve for them, and what experience they want in learning about you, engaging with you, and having their problem removed and fulfilled by you. I think back to one of our very mid-stage clients. It was in the 2008-2009, straight after the credit crunch, which hit the world equally hard. No, perhaps not equally hard, but it hit the world hard. It was a watch retailer that sold 50 to 150,000 pound watches, wristwatches. And he said to me, Pavlo, we're in trouble. We're in the luxury market game. And I said, but what is the luxury market game? Surely there's no such thing. What problems do you solve for your clients? And he said, no, my clients buy these products because they're luxury items. We did some really interesting work with him. And 6 months later, it emerged that he was not in the luxury market. He was solving problems for collectors of watches who were terrified of losing a collection in a sequence because it would upset the asset value that they have built. He was in the business of selling watches. I'm sorry about this, but this is what emerged. To money launderers who were looking to take hot money, buy an expensive watch, auction it the very next day, maintaining its value, and through that washing their money. He discovered he was in the business of moving assets around the world, where John Doe would arrive with 17 family members, each of them buying a 100,000 pound Rolex, putting it on their wrists and flying off to some foreign destination and realizing the value of those watches in a property of some shape or form. Understanding what problem he solved made the difference to his business growing an average 24.6% compound growth rate in the midst of the recovery of the global credit crunch. I want to share some history with you very quickly because this is what we all get taught. The first piece of history is this man over here, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He turned around and said, build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door. And in 1771, he was absolutely right. There were no products out there. So anyone who had a product, this, a pen, a remarkable product in 1771, if you had it and it worked, everyone would knock on your door. Someone took him very seriously, this fellow over here, called Henry Ford. And in 1922, he was quoted as saying, you can have any Model T Ford you want for so long as it is black. Products ruled. He or she who could build products and build them profitably and make them affordable ruled the world. And then this chap in the very late 60s, mid 60s, Philip Kotler, he turned around and he said, no, 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 that's not how you position a business. A brand needs to be built around customer segments because birds of a feather gather together. And an enormous amount of investment was made by the advertising agency and industry in understanding what customer segments look like. All of us are classified by the banks as SMEs. And yet, how many of you are really happy with your bank or your mobile provider or bandwidth provider? We are SMEs. We're one segment, and we get attacked with marketing on the basis that we are SMEs in a segment and therefore the same. What we have found over the last 3 to 5 years is that a product mindset and a segment mindset in itself is simply not enough to stand out in the noise. Unless you have a clear sense of who you serve, your ability to build brand is profoundly compromised. Because the only thing that anybody ever spends any money on is having a problem solved. Whether it be hair or whether it be an environment created by certain people. Problems rule. To the extent that you know what problem you solve for your client is the extent to which you can define the problem and quantify the problem, knowing full well that in solving that problem, the value of your product or service leaves value on the table for that client. And not even that is enough nowadays. I'm going to give you absolute evidence of this. Because nowadays, most of our competitors have got products equal to ours. They've understood the segment. They kind of know what problem they're solving. And the differentiator between the businesses that are growing and the businesses that are struggling is the ability to generate and provide an experience. If I understand who I serve and I can define them in terms of the problems they have, and I can create an experience that lets them know about me, lets them engage with me, and puts me in a position to solve their problem through an experience that resonates with them. That is the winning formula to creating a brand and the positioning of your business. Do we know who she is? Is anyone familiar with her? She's fantastic. Ben, you know who she is? So, guys, I struggle to listen to Trump personally. I fall into a very particular segment of people. I get very, very frustrated listening to him. But yet it's important to understand what he's saying because he has an impact on every single one of our lives. And what Sarah Cooper did, a little known comedian, 3.5 months ago, with 10,000 Twitter followers, is she started to mime Trump. And she created an experience for a segment of people who need to hear and understand what Trump is saying, but cannot, because of high emotion, follow, listen, and watch Trump himself. Take a look.
We hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting.
Right, folks who could.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
So folks, she solves a problem for someone like me by creating an incredible experience to pick up the policies and positions that Trump is communicating that will affect all of us in this world. It's no different to running your business. Once positioning is well defined and defined in those terms, the trick now is to build a system of delivery. And a system of delivery is what consistently finds, wins, and holds customers and fulfills your promises without creating chaos in the engine room. It's no different to the engine system in the boat. In the ship, you have gears. The gears are marketing to generate leads, sales to convert the leads, operations to fulfill your promises, administration, the glue and the data that holds everything together. And when each of those gears are designed and worked in an integral manner, well orchestrated, that drives your positioning consistently, it gives the ship, the business, propulsion. One of our earlier clients at the age of 54, who'd been in the baking sector since the age of 29, came to see me with a £4.8 million annual revenue turnover and said to me, Pavlo, I'm out. I used to love the sector. I used to love baking. I've got the best croissants in the world, but I'm done with it. Every time we create business, we create more chaos. I cannot bear this life any longer. Why are you coming to see me now? I asked him. He said, well, for 2 years, I've been trying to sell the business, and the prices that have been offered are simply not enough to look after me for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So we decided to do some work with him to build the business into a saleable entity. And 14 years on, he remains at the helm with an annual revenue sitting at £62 million as of December 2019. The only thing that we focused on was turning the activities of the business to generate leads, to convert leads, and to fulfill the promises to leads into systems. Let's just clarify a little bit what systems are. All they are are activities in a sequence that can be measured and taught. How do you generate leads? Well, identify the activities that you can put in a sequence that are measurable and importantly can be taught. And that needs to correlate with the experience you promise clients. Sales, activities in a sequence that can be measured and taught. And as you build the commercial functions of marketing, sales, operations, and administration into systems to articulate and deliver your positioning, it puts you for the very first time in a situation in your business where you can build and hold the right team. Because how else do you employ people? And what do you employ them to do? If you think back in the quiet moments, you'll recognize that you're mostly employing people to take pressure off your workload, your areas of stress. And the way that we employ people is we recruit and we sit with 3 CVs in front of us and we look at the CVs. And one would think that each of these individuals could single-handedly build the base station on Mars alone. Because when you look at all the bullet points of skills and attributes, and you look at their track records in terms of what they've done, how do you as a business owner identify that person to the opportunity that you need filled? If all our activities are designed around systems, activities in a sequence that can be measured, it's very easy to have a conversation with an individual and test their ability to perform the activity. When you employ that individual, you have, because activities are in a sequence that can be measured and taught, the ability to teach the activities. You have the ability to measure the activities. And as we build out the business on this basis, you put your team in a situation where they're in control of the job function, the job activity, the system operation that they've taken responsibility for. And what's fascinating about that is that when people perform in a business, it builds confidence. And that confidence amplifies commitment and meaning and value. And that in itself, the commitment, meaning, and value that people find in the work they do, takes them and puts them in a position where they build out the systems, amplify the systems, and innovate around the systems to improve them and make them better. It's the essence of creating the first stage of a good culture. But most importantly, it is vital to give you time. Time not in daily operations that I would refer to as being in the engine room of your ship. Hauling coal day in and day out. Hauling coal from Monday to Friday. Feeding the fires from January to December. From 1920 to 2020. To the extent that you are in the engine room means that you are quintessentially involved in daily, weekly, monthly activities within the entire operations of the business. And that generates propulsion. It gives you a sense of growth and movement. But your job as a business owner is to be on the bridge. And on the bridge, you have instrumentation. And that instrumentation lets you know if lead generation as a system, as a cog in the engine is working. If lead conversion as a system, as a cog in the engine is working. Because you yourself have built those cogs. And because those cogs are measurable, the team involved in operating those cogs, their performance is measurable. And what that does is it releases your time, ultimately, to manage the direction of the propulsion, so that when you have departed, the destination is close and easier gotten by. That time is fundamental to do 2 things: to build culture and to lead growth. There's some really interesting stats that were released quite recently from a population of 4,500 SMEs right across the UK. Businesses with 0 to 3 employees generate an average of £6,000 profit. Between 4 to 9 employees, £15,000 profit. And from 10 to 50 employees, £65,000 of profit. People power the systems. The systems articulate and deliver on your positioning. They're essential to building and growing a business. And while systems can take care of most of it, the culture you develop, the atmosphere you develop, the values that you integrate into the operation of your business, that has to be led by you, the business owner. And if you're involved in daily, weekly, monthly activities, operating a business, running from pillar to post, putting out fires, hauling coal, there's simply no time to do that. More time leading, less time doing. The second element of what the business owner should be focused most of their time on is how to get the growth. We refer to it from an Aurik point of view as widening the yawn between your costs and your revenue. To the extent that as a business, you're attempting to serve all people with all things, is the extent to which your business will become increasingly nothing to everyone. It's the extent to which your operations, your system of delivery, will emerge into constant chaos as you're meeting the needs and wants of a wider and wider variety of clients. To the extent that you decide it's not your product that wins the day, but it's the fact that you've identified a niche group of customers that you've understood in terms of problems, against which you have created a system of delivery to give the best possible experience to them in every sense of the word, means that you stabilize the underlying platform, the foundation of the business, and your time can be released through a purposeful team to chase growth, next level growth, not organic or pedestrian growth, by bringing new business on board that can be delivered by the established system of delivery. If that new business coming on board disturbs the system of delivery, then you see that classical instance where your revenues rise, but your costs rise alongside with it. The reason this matters so much is because the stats are terrible. Globally, the successful sale of businesses is 5.4%. And folks, there are so many smart people out there building businesses. This has got nothing to do with intelligence. It's got nothing to do with hard work. It's got nothing to do with commitment. It's got nothing to do with passion. Throughout the university period, throughout technical colleges, throughout lessons in life, throughout reading books, we are taught the interest of business, but we are never shown how to effectively build it. A chartered accountant becomes a numbers technician. A plumber is a pipe technician. A programmer is a coding technician. An MBA is a consulting technician. The building out of a business is seldom ever taught. When it comes to succession in family businesses or in instances of the professional services sector, the success of founder to first generation succession sits at a measly 27%. And this is of businesses that have traversed the first 5 to 10 years of their existence. These stats do not incorporate the startup environment and the challenges there alone. These are businesses that were successful prior to an exit. And the reason there's an exit is because for all of us, no matter how much we love what we do, time runs out. The final destination for every business is one of two. It's a sale or it's a closure. I want to talk very quickly about the buying process or the investing process. Douglas, I saw in the comments that you sent through, you're interested in understanding where investment could be found. So let me share with you the mindset of an investor, because all of you inherently and intuitively know this. The first question that gets asked by a buyer of a business or the funder of a business is what makes you special. Mamutiani, what sets you and your business apart? Is it your product? Because the moment you say product, everyone knows that a product advantage today is something that will be met by your competitors tomorrow. And why? Because your competitors have to. It's a necessity for them to remain relevant. When people say, oh no, Michelle, it's my service sets us apart. When you look closely at what delivers that service, in most instances, that service is orchestrated through your hand. And that leaves a question, or begs the question, without you there, is it sustainable? Is it price? Ben, if you're arguing that price is what sets you apart, again, out of necessity, your competitors tomorrow, above whom you have a price advantage, will meet you in the market tomorrow. They have to, out of necessity. We argue over here, what makes you special is ownership of a niche group of customers whose problems you've understood intimately, and who, by serving them, you create an experience that keeps them on board and amplifies your business to people similar to them. Dominance in a niche of customers, not product, nor price, nor service, is what yields the first level of value in an exit or in fundraising. Thereafter, the investor asks, how far into the future can your business continue to run? Now, here's the key. If you're selling the business, then the question is, without you there, this wonderful history you've shown me, and the forecast into the future you are asking me to buy, can it occur without you? And if so, why? And if so, how? If your answer is, the future revenues of this business will be created and generated by a system of delivery operated by a purposeful team, immediately it demonstrates that without you there, the history you've enjoyed will support the future you're projecting. Because bear in mind, when I acquire the business, I'm acquiring the business in the hope that in the future I will increase the capital value, I will increase the growth income, and it will be tradable. The final question a buyer asks is, how scalable and profitable is your business? If you show growth, and you've shown growth leading up to the point of investment or sale, what does your cost growth look like in relation to your revenue growth? If you cannot demonstrate a yawn, a widening, increasing gap between the increase in revenue and the underlying operating costs, in many ways, what you're simply selling are your set of problems to me. What's key over here is stacking revenues on a stable system of delivery. 3 levers that arguably support valuation and, most importantly, exit. And yet very few of us build and bake those levers into the businesses we're building. So I want to go back to my opening questions. What is your attitude? What is your current mindset? In our view, based on what we've seen, a constant, persistent growth mindset wins. To the extent that you find a growth mindset waning, means you're at a good point in time to start considering exiting your business. What makes your business special? Not the product, not the price, not even your service. It's dominance and ownership and understanding of a niche group of customers. How do you consistently tell the world and fulfill your promises? It's all about the system of delivery. One of the toughest things to build in a business, but crucial to the success of building a business. Because that lets you have a purposeful team. How do you make it all happen? When I'm buying the business, it's one of my first questions. I need to see the right people doing the right thing at the right time. And when I acquire that business, I need to see that those individuals are attached and married to the opportunities that they have created within the business. They need to remain as I move on. Otherwise, Andy, you buy the business and tomorrow you're left with the entire mess. How do you spend your time and what is your role in the business? If it's not centered around strategic growth, and you can demonstrate that, Douglas, when I buy your business, what I'm buying is your life. So let me understand your life from a Monday to a Friday, from a January to a December. And if it's involved in putting out fires day in and day out, well, maybe there's a better bet for me out there. If it's involved, however, in looking for next level growth, and I come on board with opportunities to deliver that, the cost of the business today, I know I will be able to get my returns tomorrow. What is your final destination? If we are not building and thinking with an asset of value mindset, it means we are not building and thinking with an asset of value mindset. We will find ourselves at a point in time where we want to sell a business that we have never ever been built for sale. And then you need to understand your wealth maths. Three levers determine valuation and investment. To the extent that you build them into your business through the systems and through positioning, through people and how you spend your time, is the extent to which you will build a business into a growth generating asset. I want to end off very quickly in terms of how we would work with you. The first thing we always do with every client is find a chemistry match. We have an intimate relationship with all our clients. It's very personal. We meet each other frequently in 2-hour sessions, 3 times a week. It's intimate, it's intense. The agreement is we're going for growth, and we need to build a business to scale first before we charge out the growth and look for the growth. And we need to get there fast. It's an intimate relationship. If you know everything, we can be of no value to you. If you know what you want, and you recognize that you know what you know what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, pretty much like ourselves, we'll find each other very easily. The next thing we ask is, doing what we do and how we do it, will we have an impact on your business or not? There's nothing worse than grumpy clients on both sides of the table. And the reason this is so important is because 70% of our fees are based on growth in your business. We attach a percentage to revenues, and we aim to get revenues to grow. And if the revenues don't grow over the period that we work with you, we burn. It's something we have deliberately built into our costing model so that we can make good choices in clients that we work with as they make good choices in us, and that we can test and be absolutely certain that in doing what we do and how we do it, there will be an impact. We give you an experience with us to close any gaps around an agreement to work together. And as I mentioned, the investment is fundamental to us. We carry risk. We need to be sure that we can have an impact. When we do engage, the first thing we do is we run diagnostics across the business. We get a good sense of what's there, what's not. We then set the growth plan, customized entirely to you, your circumstances, and your goals. We then focus on building out the system of delivery, because essential to this entire process against which we accelerate growth is we need time with you. And in accelerating the growth, we ensure that we do so by deepening value too. And with that, folks, I've taken up 50% of your time. And I'm very keen to hear if you have questions, if you have anything that I've not covered, if you've got questions specific and unique to your business, please raise your hand or let me see you indicate. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to engage with them. Who's got the right answers to those questions? Who was on key for those questions? The 7 acts that build a business. The right attitude, hard on your own. We all get trapped in our own worlds. We all narrow down into our own sectors and industries. What makes our business special? It's fascinating when I visit websites. The first thing I see are fantastic products and promises, but I never see a deep and profound understanding of a customer segment. How do we do what we need to do 12 months of the year? Instead of carrying 12 months of costs, how do we generate 12 months of revenue to match the 12 months of costs? How do we make it all happen? Where do you find a purposeful team, the right people to do the right things at the right time? And when that releases time for us, how are we spending it? And then finally, are we thinking asset of value from day one? It's amazing, the way you think is the way that life happens and comes about. And then, of course, have we baked in the 3 levers of value? Because that understanding is essential. So from Ben, what is the typical size of client that we start with and level of ambition for growth? Oh, Ben, there's no cap to growth, mate. We will gun it with you for as long as we work with you, and we will do it in a way. So let me answer the question a bit more intelligently. When you grow a business and you want to maintain control over the business, and by that, what I mean is as you grow the business, so too do you create more complexity in the business. And it's the complexity that then stalls your growth. So when you grow a business, you don't grow a business in a straight line up. You grow it in a very similar way to the way that you would walk upstairs. You establish your system of delivery. And as you've established your system of delivery, which means it's released time to you to focus on growth, you bring on the deals and you bring on the growth that the system of delivery can responsibly deliver on. But as you grow to that next level, so too do you have to reinvest in the capacity of the business to deliver for the next growth spurt that the business enjoys. So when we work with you, we grow in a stair-like fashion as opposed to in a straight line up. Because if you maintain the capability of your system of delivery, what it means is that you're constantly up on the bridge. And the person who understands where to find growth best in your business is you as the business owner. You have the deepest understanding of your sector, the deepest understanding of your industry. You know where the opportunities lie. You know where all the BS is, and you know where you can find the right kind of people to work with. But to the extent that every time you grow, you pull back into the engine room to deliver, then that growth momentum is interrupted. So when you build a business for scale, you create the scalability in it, but scale is never ever set. It has to compound itself with every single next stage of growth. So we work with you. We measure all of that using data, incidentally. We're constantly measuring capacity on lead generation, lead conversion, and lead fulfillment. And when the capacity indicators show that you're hitting 85%, then the conversation with you would be, listen, I think we need to refocus on doubling down in systems. We need to build more capacity. We need to get our capacity levels back to about 65% so we can go for the next level of growth. And where do we start? We start with the conversation. The conversation yields, A, whether we have good chemistry. It gives us a very good sense that in doing what we do and how we do it, will we have an impact on your business? If we can't have an impact on your business, we specify and state why. If we can, then you need to get on board because we want to get on board. Mamotiani, what percentage of our clients in the professional services? You know, it's an interesting question, because what business isn't in services, firstly? And then what does professional services mean? Increasingly, more and more clients are in professional services. The mindset in professional services is that you scale through people. So if we take one industry in specifically, let's look at the accounting sector. Last year in the UK, the accounting sector increased its global revenues by 13.2%. And for the second year in a row, net profit before tax profitability fell by 1.8%. Now that's indicative of a business that is scaling through people. Because if you can only grow through people, every time you bring people on board, whilst you will grow your revenues, you're growing your operating overhead too. There are smarter ways for professional services entities to create scale. And scale isn't only about the ability to deliver, it's about the ability to create that experience. I'll give you a simple example. The way that an accounting service should sell itself to us as an SME, as opposed to you, Andy, as an individual, and as opposed to Barclays Bank for major audits or audit work, is profoundly and fundamentally different. So what you are asking yourself to do is to create 3 systems of selling, because selling is about communicating a message to clients that will resonate with that message, then engaging those clients in a manner that converts them, and then fulfilling your obligations to those clients based on their needs. The needs of an SME with a £2 million revenue compared to one with a £20 million revenue, compared to a corporate with a £20 billion revenue, are fundamentally different from each other. The regulatory complexity is different. The buying processes are different. So creating systems to service anyone and everyone means you never create a system that you can bed down, improve, constantly enhance, own as your IP, and then dominate winning business from a niche. And the starting point in professional services to create scale is to not try and be everything to everyone. Yet the problem with people in professional services is that they're essentially highly capable individuals. If I look at engineers in particular, I'm yet to meet an engineer who cannot solve a problem in anything. So the individual running the engineering firm is looking for problems everywhere, with anyone, anyhow, in any place, in any space, and never doubling down on creating one single capability to solve one single problem for one single group of clients. You lose the opportunity of scale, and whilst you might grow, so too do you grow your costs. Nick, how long does our system take? Our system, we work over a 24-month period, Nick. The first 2 months are around the diagnostics. We look to see what's there, what's missing, and what gaps need to be filled. The starting point after that is around getting positioning right. And once that's clearly understood and articulated, the system of delivery is built out, which creates the scale. And then the balance of our time together, which is normally around 1.5 years, is focused on next level growth. From Michelle, what sectors and industries do we work in? Michelle, we work across sector and industry. And the best way to look at it is like this. In many ways, if you look at 4 athletes on an Olympic field, and let's say you've got the 100-meter sprinter, you've got the shot putist, you've got the long jumper, and you've got the marathon runner. And we strip them of their clothes. They'll all have very different body shapes, muscle densities, and skeletal structures. We refer to that as the model suited to your sector or industry. What they all have in common, however, is a heart, liver, lungs, kidney, and spleen. The organs are the systems that, when they operate well, allow the business model, in other words, the frame of the athlete, to perform within their discipline. So we look at business like that. Our area of speciality and expertise is entirely on the commercial systems. The sector and industry you're in will require a shape to your business model, the products and services you offer. Trust me, you know best. What we do is we work with you to create a system that gets those products and services landed into the clients you want to serve in a manner that occurs independently of you. What we refer to is putting you in a position where you work on the business as opposed to in the business. That's the essence of what we build in working with you to create an asset of value. And whether you're in the mining sector, the legal sector, the food sector, the tech sector, every business has to market to generate leads, sell to convert the leads, fulfill to deliver on your promises, and run a sensible administration so you have a sense of what's working, what's not, and you can hold it all together. Fantastic. Guys, I think I've covered all of the questions that I've seen on the chat. I hope you found it valuable. We will reach out to you. We will send you a link with the recording. There's an opportunity to think about what we've shared. Thank you, Doug, for the thumbs up. And any other questions? Thank you, Nick, for the thumbs up. Any other questions that remain, please feel free to respond to the email that goes out to you. Julian and his team, I and my team will be reaching out to you and hopefully speaking soon once again. For now, get the attitude right, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for giving up the time. Have an excellent entrepreneurial day further.